Tonight, we uncover the chilling reality that our maps of the solar system are not just incomplete, but fundamentally wrong. Imagine standing at the edge of the known world, looking out into a void so vast and dark that light itself takes days to cross it. We have spent centuries cataloguing every pebble in the asteroid belt and mapping the surfaces of moons millions of miles away. Yet we are now realizing that a giant, or perhaps something much more ancient, is lurking in the shadows of our own backyard. For years, astronomers have whispered about a ghost world, a Planet 9 that dances on the fringes of our gravity. But as the data trickles in from the coldest reaches of space, a more disturbing truth is emerging. It isn't just one world missing. There is a river of matter being jammed between the giants we know. A 15-degree warp in the fabric of the outer system that defies every law we have written. And the very real possibility that what we are tracking isn't a planet at all, but a dark relic from the birth of time itself. We have been staring into the abyss, and finally, something is starting to stare back. We like to think of our solar system as a completed map, a finished family portrait where every member is accounted for, labelled, and tucked into a predictable orbit. We have grown comfortable with the 8 planets we were taught in school, believing that the era of discovery was a relic of the past. But this sense of order is a comfortable lie we have told ourselves for over a century. We have been fooled into thinking we already know everything about our own cosmic neighborhood. But the truth is that we have only just scratched the surface. This arrogance, this idea that the solar system is a solved puzzle, is what astronomers call a blind spot, a collective psychological barrier that prevents us from seeing the massive gaps in our understanding. We have focused our most powerful telescopes on galaxies billions of light years away and catalogued exoplanets orbiting distant stars with surgical precision, yet we remain remarkably ignorant of what lies just beyond our own doorstep. To understand how we became so blind, we have to look back at the moments when that map first began to crack. For thousands of years, the planets visible to the naked eye, Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, and Saturn, defined the limits of our world. They were the wanderers, the only lights in the sky that refused to stay put. Then, in 1781, a self-taught English astronomer named William Herschel changed everything. He wasn't even looking for a planet. He was scanning the sky for comets with a telescope he built himself in his backyard. He stumbled upon a faint, slow-moving object that didn't behave like a comet at all. It was a giant orbiting far beyond Saturn. We named it Uranus, and for a brief moment the world felt larger. But with that discovery came the first hint of a ghost. As astronomers tracked the orbit of Uranus over the following decades, they noticed something unsettling. The planet wasn't moving the way the laws of physics said it should. It wobbled. It would speed up and then slow down, as if an invisible hand were tugging on it from the darkness further out. This was more than just a math error. It was a perturbation, a clear signal that an external force was influencing the planet's path. In 1846, 2 mathematicians, Urban Le Verrier and John Couch Adams, sat down with nothing but pencil and paper to solve the mystery. They calculated exactly where a hidden 8th planet would have to be to cause that specific wobble. When astronomers pointed their telescopes at the predicted spot, they found Neptune within hours, just 1 degree off from the mathematical prediction. This was the peak of human hubris. We had used the gold standard of orbital mechanics to conjure a world out of thin air, and we succeeded. It gave us the dangerous idea that if something was out there, our math would find it. We became obsessed with finding the next perturbation. When Neptune itself appeared to have a slight wobble, the hunt was on for Planet X. In 1930, we found Pluto, but it was a discovery born of observational bias. We went looking for a giant and found a tiny, highly reflective speck of ice. We called it the ninth planet because we desperately wanted the map to be finished, but we were wrong. Pluto was far too small to influence Neptune's orbit. In fact, the wobble in Neptune turned out to be nothing more than an error in measurement. When we demoted Pluto in 2006, the solar system shrank back to 8 planets. We convinced ourselves that the outer solar system was just a frozen graveyard of ancient debris, a region called the Kuiper Belt filled with trillions of icy rocks and dwarf planets. We categorized it, labeled it, and put it away. We felt secure in our knowledge because we could see the stars at the edge of the universe. But here is the disturbing irony. Because the outer solar system is so dark and the objects within it move so slowly, it is actually easier for us to see a galaxy millions of, light years away, than it is to see a dark planet in our own system. Out at 150 astronomical units, the distance where we suspect these hidden worlds may reside, the Sun is nothing more than a bright, cold star in a black sky. It provides no warmth and casts no shadows. Any planet out there would receive a minuscule fraction of the sunlight we do, and it would have to reflect that tiny bit of light back across the incomprehensible vastness of space for us to see it. If that world is covered in dark, carbon-rich material, it becomes effectively invisible to every telescope we have ever built. This is the outer darkness, a realm that exists beyond the reach of our current maps. We have been operating under the assumption that if we haven't seen it, it isn't there. But the 5 Sigma data is starting to tell a different story. We are finding that the record of our solar system isn't flat like it should be. It is warped. There are objects like Sedna that should not exist in their current orbits, worlds that have been detached from the influence of the known gas giants by a force we cannot name. We are realizing that the family portrait we've cherished is missing its most significant members, rejected cores of planets that were violently exiled during the system's chaotic birth, or perhaps even interstellar captures that our Sun stole from other stars billions of years ago. Finding these hidden worlds isn't just about adding a 9th or 10th name to a list. It is about admitting that we have been wrong about the very structure of our home. It proves that even after centuries of looking up, we are still blind to the secrets of the dark. We are currently standing at a crossroads, much like Herschel was in 1781 or Leverrier in 1846. We have the math, we have the anomalies, and for the first time, we are starting to hear the gravitational shouting of a world that refuses to be ignored. The comfortable lie is ending. As we look deeper into the Kuiper Belt, we are no longer just looking at a graveyard, we are looking at an active crime scene, where the fingerprints of an invisible sculptor are everywhere. And if the latest evidence is correct, that sculptor is much closer than we ever dared to imagine. To understand the mystery of what lies beyond the reach of our telescopes, we have to stop looking for a planet and start looking for a crime scene. For decades, we treated the Kuiper Belt as a quiet, frozen graveyard, a stagnant ring of icy debris left over from the birth of the solar system. We assumed these trillions of objects were drifting in a state of chaotic, random motion, occasionally nudged by Neptune, but otherwise left to their own devices in the dark. But when we began to map the orbits of the most distant objects in this graveyard, we didn't find chaos. We found a conspiracy. This is what astronomers now call the orbital crime scene, and the evidence left behind points toward an invisible sculptor that has been shaping our solar system for billions of years. The first piece of forensic evidence came from the realization that the most distant objects in the Kuiper Belt are not distributed randomly. Imagine throwing 1,000 marbles onto a floor. You would expect them to scatter in every possible direction. But in the outer solar system, the marbles are all rolling toward the same corner of the room. In 2016, researchers Mike Brown and Konstantin Batygin noticed that a specific group of extremely distant Kuiper Belt objects were all clustered together in a way that defied every law of probability. Their orbits were all tilted at the same common angle and pointed toward the same specific direction in space. To see this kind of alignment naturally would be like walking into a room and finding 6 different clocks all ticking in perfect synchronization, down to the millisecond. It simply doesn't happen by accident. This clustering is the first fingerprint of a massive, hidden influence. The math suggests that these objects are being herded, pushed into a very specific alignment by a gravitational giant that resides on the opposite side of the Sun. This hidden world acts as a shepherd, using its immense gravity to gently tug on these icy rocks over millions of years, forcing them into a stable configuration that keeps them out of its own way. If there were nothing out there, these orbits should have randomized and drifted apart eons ago. The fact that they are still perfectly aligned right now is a silent scream from the darkness, telling us that the sculptor is still at work. But the most disturbing piece of evidence isn't just that things are clustered, it's that some things shouldn't be there at all. This brings us to the mystery of the detached objects, the most famous of which is the dwarf planet Sedna. Sedna is a world of pure atmospheric horror. It exists on an orbit so vast and so distant that it takes over 10,000 years to complete a single trip around the Sun. But here is the problem. Sedna never comes close enough to Neptune to be influenced by its gravity. In the standard 8-planet model of our solar system, Neptune acts as the security guard of the outer reaches. It is the only thing massive enough to kick objects out into deep space. But Sedna is detached. It is stuck in a gravitational no-man's land where it should be impossible for it to exist. How did Sedna get there? It couldn't have formed in its current orbit because there wasn't enough material that far out during the solar system's birth. And it couldn't have been put there by Neptune because their paths never cross. This makes Sedna a forensic impossibility unless you introduce a 9th planet. A massive world lurking far beyond the Kuiper Belt would have the reach to hand off objects from Neptune and pull them further into the deep, slowly detaching them from the influence of the inner giants and dragging them into the outer darkness. We have now confirmed multiple objects that share this detached status, all of them following the same strange rules that only make sense if a 9th planet is guiding them. For years, skeptics argued that this evidence was nothing more than observational bias, that we were only seeing these clusters because we were only looking in certain patches of the sky. They suggested that if we looked everywhere, the cluster would disappear into a random distribution. But then came the discovery of the river of matter, a piece of evidence so significant it has been labelled with the 5 sigma gold standard of scientific proof. This isn't just about static orbits, this is about active, ongoing motion. The simulations are clear. If a 9th planet exists, it wouldn't just sit there. It would act like a gravitational pump, grabbing icy bodies from the distant Oort cloud and throwing them inward toward the Sun. This creates a literal flux, a river of material that is currently being jammed into the space between Jupiter and Neptune. If there were no hidden planet, this region should be relatively empty, as Neptune would have cleared out any stray rocks millions of years ago. But we are seeing these objects arrive right now. We are watching a cosmic game of catch where the hidden planet throws a rock inward, and Neptune catches it. When researchers compared the actual orbits of these incoming objects to the predictions made by their models, the results were staggering. The solar system without a hidden planet was rejected at a 5 sigma level. In the world of physics, 5 sigma means there is only a 1 in 3.5 million chance that this result is a fluke or a statistical error. It is the same level of certainty required to announce the discovery of the Higgs boson. The data is telling us with near total certainty that the river is real, and it is being fed by something massive and unseen. This realization transforms our understanding of the solar system from a static map into a dynamic, shifting environment. We are no longer just looking for a missing person in the dark. We are tracking the wake of a giant as it moves through the water. We can see the ripples, we can see the displaced debris, and we can hear the gravitational noise of its passage. Every strange tilt, every backwards orbit, and every detached world is a piece of testimony in a case that is now virtually closed. Yet, as we stare into this orbital crime scene, a new and more unsettling question arises. While the evidence for Planet 9 is overwhelming, the math for the specific 15-degree warp in the Kuiper Belt doesn't actually fit a world that far away. The invisible sculptor we have been tracking at 500 astronomical units is too distant to explain why the inner part of the graveyard is wobbling like a spinning top. It suggests that our crime scene has more than one suspect. It hints at the existence of Planet Y, a rocky, Earth-sized world hiding much closer than we ever suspected, buried deep within the very debris it is warping. We are realizing that the outer darkness isn't just home to one ghost, but a family of them, and we have been living in the middle of their dance without ever realizing they were. There, we have spent our entire history believing the solar system was a solved mystery. We looked at the empty spaces on our maps and assumed they were actually empty. But the river of matter and the 5 sigma evidence have shattered that illusion. We are now forced to confront the fact that we are the ones who are out of place. We are the inhabitants of the bright inner core, blissfully unaware of the massive dark machinery that operates just beyond our sight. The crime scene is active. The sculptor is still carving, and the only thing missing is the moment we finally come face to face with what has been watching us from the shadows of the 9th orbit. If the evidence of an invisible sculptor is the fingerprint on the crime scene, then the anomaly we are about to explore is the structural crack in the foundation of the house itself. For years, the hunt for a hidden world has been dominated by a single towering figure, Planet 9. We have been conditioned to look for a massive, ghostly mini Neptune, a gas giant 10 times the mass of Earth, lurking in the extreme fringes of our system between 400 and 800 astronomical units away. But as we look closer at the Kuiper Belt, a new and more localized mystery is emerging, one that Planet 9, despite its immense gravity, simply cannot explain. This is the mystery of the 15-degree warp, and it points to a second, hidden resident that might be much closer than we ever dared to imagine. To understand the scale of this problem, you have to picture the solar system not as a series of circles, but as a physical object. According to the fundamental laws of orbital dynamics, the Kuiper Belt, that vast frozen graveyard of icy bodies and ancient debris, should be relatively flat, like a vinyl record, spinning on a turntable. The vast majority of the mass in our solar system aligns with this flat plane, a relic of the spinning disk of gas and dust that birthed the planets billions of years ago. But recently, when astronomers began mapping the deep reaches of the Kuiper Belt, between 80 and 200 astronomical units, they noticed something that shouldn't be possible. The record is warped. A specific population of icy objects in this region is not following the flat plane of the solar system. Instead, they exhibit a collective, synchronized 15-degree tilt to their orbits. They are swooping up and down through the system like a wobbly spinning top. Under normal circumstances, the gravitational influence of giants like Jupiter and Neptune should have smoothed this warp out over the eons. The fact that this 15-degree tilt is still there right now means that something is actively sustaining it. Something out in the dark is constantly stirring the pot, maintaining a structural anomaly that physics says should have vanished long ago. The immediate assumption was that Planet 9 was the culprit. It was the invisible hand we were already looking for after all. But when a team of researchers at Princeton University ran the simulations to test this, the math didn't just fail, it broke. Planet 9 is theorized to be at least 400 astronomical units away, a distance so vast that it takes light itself nearly a full day to cross it. For perspective, the Voyager 1 probe, the furthest man-made object in history, is currently only about 165 astronomical units away. Planet 9 is at least double or even quadruple that distance. At that scale, its gravitational resonance is simply too distant and too diluted to explain a specific, localized warp between 80 and 200 astronomical units. Planet 9 is the giant in the distance, but it isn't the one tilting the floor beneath our feet. So, the researchers asked the supercomputers a different question. What kind of invisible mass would explain this exact 15-degree gravitational signature? The answer provided by the math was startling. It wasn't a distant gas giant, it was a terrestrial world, a rocky sphere with a mass somewhere between that of Mercury and the Earth. And it wasn't hundreds of billions of miles away, it was orbiting comfortably close to home, right inside that 80 to 200 astronomical unit zone. This is Planet Y, a hidden, rocky Earth twin that has been hiding in plain sight for the entire history of human astronomy. The existence of Planet Y would do more than just add a new name to the maps. It would completely shatter our understanding of how solar systems are born. Current planetary models struggle to explain how a rocky, Earth-sized world could even form that far out. In the early days of our system, the solar nebula, the disk of gas and dust, shouldn't have been dense enough at 100 astronomical units to coalesce into a rocky world of that size. This leads us to two mind-bending possibilities, each more disturbing than the last. The first possibility is that Planet Y is a lost sibling in exile. It may have formed much closer to the Sun, perhaps alongside Earth, Venus, and Mars, in the violent, chaotic youth of our system. But as the gas giants like Jupiter and Saturn began their great migration, they acted like cosmic bullies, their massive gravity tossing smaller worlds around like pebbles. In this scenario, Planet Y had a close encounter with a migrating Jupiter and was violently kicked out of the inner solar system, banished to the freezing, dark outer edges where it has remained for 4 billion years, a silent, frozen witness to a family it was never allowed to join. The second possibility is even more haunting. Planet Y might be an interstellar thief. It could be a rogue planet, a world born around a different star and then untethered from its home, left to wander blindly through the galaxy in the absolute cold of interstellar space. It may have drifted too close to our Sun during its birth cluster phase, getting snagged in our gravitational web like a fly in a spider's silk. If this is true, then we have an alien world, a piece of another star system hiding right here in our own. But what would it actually be like to stand on the surface of planet Y? It would be a realm of absolute crushing twilight. At 150 astronomical units, the Sun is no longer the life-giving orb we depend on, it is merely the brightest star in a perpetually black sky. It is too distant to provide warmth, and too faint to even cast a shadow. The temperature on the surface would be just tens of degrees above absolute zero, so cold that substances we know as gases, like nitrogen and methane, would freeze solid into air. Brittle crust. There would be no atmosphere as we know it, just a silent, dark, dead world, a tomb of ice and rock. Yet, despite its frozen silence, Planet Y is massive enough to be a powerful shepherd. It uses its gravity to herd and warp the icy debris of the Kuiper Belt, creating a gravitational signature so loud that our telescopes are finally beginning to hear it. You might wonder, if an Earth-sized planet is that close, why haven't we seen it? The answer lies in the sheer incomprehensibility of space. Planet Y receives a minuscule fraction of sunlight, and what little it does receive, it must reflect back across that same vast distance for us to catch it. If its surface is covered in dark, carbon-rich material, a common feature in the outer solar system, it would absorb almost all of that light, making it virtually invisible against the blackness of the void. Furthermore, a planet at 150 astronomical units moves with agonizing slowness. It takes over 1,800 years to complete a single trip around the Sun. To spot it, you can't just take a picture, you have to take multiple, highly sensitive images of the exact same patch of sky over a long period and look for the one single pixel. That moves. It is the ultimate needle in a haystack, where the needle is moving at a snail's pace and the haystack is the entire sky. However, the moment of truth is almost here. High in the Chilean Andes, the Vera Rubin Observatory has opened its eyes. Featuring a massive 4-meter mirror and a staggering 3,200 megapixel camera, the largest digital camera ever built, it is designed to conduct a 10-year time-lapse of the entire sky. Starting in early 2026, it will image the entire visible southern sky every few nights, recording the motion of every faint, slow-moving object in the deep. It is perfectly tuned to catch the crawl of Planet Y. If it is out there, lurking in that 15-degree warp, the Vera Rubin will find it. We are on the verge of realizing that we have lived in a house with a locked room we never noticed. We are finding that the outer darkness isn't empty, it's populated. And as we prepare to finally turn on the lights, we must ask ourselves if the 15-degree warp is caused by a hidden Earth twin, and the clustering is caused by a distant gas giant, how many more ghosts are dancing in the dark? The realization that a 15-degree warp is tilting the entire outer solar system forces us to confront a question that is as much a matter of history as it is of physics. If these worlds, Planet Y and Planet 9, are truly out there, how did they end up in the freezing, lonely reaches of the outer darkness? To find the answer, we have to look back 4 billion years to a time when our solar system was not the orderly clockwork mechanism we see today, but a violent, chaotic demolition derby. We have been taught to view the planets as a stable family, but the exile theory suggests that we are actually living in the aftermath of a cosmic purge. We are the survivors of a war for gravitational dominance, and the hidden worlds we are tracking today are the siblings we lost along the way. In the early days of our system, the region where Earth, Mars, and Venus now sit was a crowded, unstable nursery. Current planetary models, supported by intense supercomputer simulations, suggest that there wasn't just 4 rocky planets in the inner circle. There were likely 5 or even 6. One of these candidates is often called Planet V, a Mars-sized rocky world that occupied a stable orbit for the first 600 million years of our history. But as the gas giants, Jupiter and Saturn, began their massive prehistoric migration through the system, the delicate balance was shattered. Jupiter, the undisputed heavyweight of our neighborhood, didn't just drift, it acted like a cosmic bully, its immense gravity acting as a slingshot. When Jupiter moved, it dragged the entire solar system with it. Any smaller world that drifted too close was either swallowed by the Sun, pulverized into the asteroid belt, or violently kicked outward. This is the heart of the violent ejection theory. Planet Y, that Earth-sized terrestrial world we suspect is hiding at 150 astronomical units, likely didn't form in the cold. It was born in the warmth, near the Sun, in a region dense enough with gas and dust to build a rocky core of that magnitude. It was a sibling to Earth, a world that might have even had the potential for oceans or an atmosphere. But in a single gravitational encounter with a migrating giant, its fate was sealed. It was slung out, accelerated to a speed that threw it past the Kuiper Belt and into the black. This creates a haunting narrative for Planet Y. It is a world in permanent exile. It lost the cosmic lottery. While Earth remained in the habitable Goldilocks zone, its sister world was banished to a realm where the Sun is just a faint star and the silence is absolute. This isn't just a speculative story, it explains the late heavy bombardment, a period 4 billion years ago when the inner planets and our moon were suddenly pummeled by a massive surge of asteroids. Simulations suggest that a 5th rocky planet, Planet V or Planet Y, crossing into the asteroid belt on its way out of the system is exactly what would have scattered those rocks. Toward us. The craters we see on the Moon today are the scars of our siblings' forced departure. But the exile theory doesn't just apply to rocky worlds. It is also the leading explanation for Planet 9, the massive mini Neptune lurking even further out at 500 astronomical units. Astronomers have long been puzzled by how a gas giant could exist so far away from the Sun. The solar nebula simply wouldn't have been thick enough at that distance to form a planet 5 to 10 times the mass of Earth. This means Planet 9 didn't form there, it was born in the giant planet region between Saturn and Neptune. It was likely a rejected core, the beginning of an ice giant that never got the chance to finish forming. Before it could gather enough gas to become a true twin of Neptune, it was caught in the gravitational crossfire of the larger giants and kicked into the extreme periphery. It didn't have quite enough speed to become a rogue planet and escape the Sun's gravity entirely, so it ended up stuck on the very edge of the abyss, tethered to a family that effectively disowned it. This makes Planet 9 more than just a ghost, it is a relic of an aborted birth. It is a world that is even more dead and frozen than Pluto, an incredibly dense ball of rock and metal that has been cooling for billions of years in an orbit that takes 15,000 years to complete. There is a deep poetic irony in this discovery that many call Pluto's revenge. In 2006, the scientific community collectively decided to demote Pluto, stripping it of its status because it was too small to clear its own orbit. We shrunk our world, believing we had finally mastered the map. But by demoting Pluto, we may have accidentally cleared the psychological space to find something much more significant. The very astronomers who led the charge to kill Pluto are the ones now finding the evidence for a true ninth planet, a world so massive it makes Pluto look like a grain of sand. We took away a small planet, and in return, the universe is forcing us to acknowledge the existence of a giant we were too arrogant to see. This exile theory reframes our entire understanding of the solar system's boundaries. We used to think the edge was a natural thinning out of material. Now, we realize the edge is a dumping ground. The outer darkness is filled with the losers of the early solar system, worlds that were too small to fight Jupiter and too large to be ignored by history. We are beginning to see that our comfortable 8-planet system is actually a pruned garden. The invisible planets are the branches that were cut off and thrown into the dark. If Planet Y is truly a lost frozen sibling, it means that when we finally point our telescopes at it, we aren't just looking at a new world, we are looking at a mirror of what Earth could have been if the dice had fallen differently. It is a terrestrial world preserved in a deep freeze for eons, a time capsule of the materials that formed our own home. But as we track the fingerprints of these exiles, we are finding that gravity isn't the only thing that could have brought a world into our system. While the exile theory explains how we lost siblings, there is another, perhaps more disturbing possibility that some of the worlds hiding in the dark aren't siblings at all, but strangers. The rogue capture theory suggests that our sun might be a thief. Billions of years ago, when the sun was still part of its birth cluster, it would have been surrounded by thousands of other young stars, all of them passing close to one another. In this crowded neighborhood, planets were frequently ripped from their home stars and sent wandering through the galaxy as rogue planets, worlds with no sun drifting in the eternal night of interstellar space. The math shows that it is entirely possible for our sun to have snagged one of these drifters as it passed by, pulling an alien world into a permanent orbit. This raises the stakes of the hunt to a level that original documentaries completely missed. If Planet 9 or Planet Y is a captured rogue, then the 9th planet isn't just a part of our solar system, it is our first direct access to an exoplanet. It would be a world born from a different nebula, around a different star, with a chemical composition that is fundamentally alien to our own. We wouldn't need to travel light years to study another star system. We would only need to travel to the edge of our own. Whether they are exiles or aliens, these worlds represent astronomy's blind spot. We have spent centuries perfecting our view of the inner system, while the outer reaches remained a realm of myth and speculation. But the crime scene evidence, the clustering, the detached objects, and the 15-degree warp is now too loud to ignore. We are realizing that the solar system didn't end at Neptune, that was just where our light ran out. In the darkness beyond, the exiles are still moving, their gravity still tugging on the icy remnants of the past, waiting for us to finally acknowledge that the map was never finished. While the exile theory provides a tragic, familiar narrative for our missing worlds, there is another possibility that is far more unsettling. We like to think of our solar system as a closed circuit, a biological family born from the same cloud of dust, sharing the same chemical DNA. But what if some of the members of our family are actually total strangers? What if the hidden world we are tracking isn't a lost sibling, but a captive? This is the interstellar thief theory, a scenario where our sun didn't just create its planets, but actively stole them from the stars that once surrounded us in the deep past. If this is true, then the 9th planet isn't just a part of our system, it is our first direct access to an alien world, a visitor from another star system hiding in our own backyard. To understand how our sun could become a thief, we have to look back to its very first moments of life. Stars are almost never born in isolation. They emerge from massive, crowded nurseries called stellar clusters, where thousands of stars are packed into a relatively small volume of space. 4.5 billion years ago, our sun was just one of many siblings in such a cluster. In this dense environment, stars were constantly drifting past one another, their gravitational fields overlapping and intertwining like a web. It was a chaotic, high-stakes bazaar where planets were frequently ripped from their home systems and sent wandering into the void as rogue planets, worlds with no sun, untethered, and drifting in the absolute zero of interstellar space. A rogue planet is a haunting concept in itself, a world that was born around one star, perhaps even in a system like ours, only to be violently ejected. These dark wanderers are now thought to be incredibly common, perhaps even outnumbering the stars in our galaxy. They are the ghosts of the cosmos, invisible and cold, moving through the darkness between the stars. But the math of orbital mechanics tells us that when a massive object like our sun passes through a field of these drifters, or near another young star system, it can act like a gravitational magnet. If a rogue planet happens to be in the right place at the right time, our sun can snag it, pulling it out of its lonely trajectory and dragging it into a permanent, distant orbit. This is the interstellar capture theory. It suggests that the sun acted as a thief during its birth cluster phase, grabbing a world from a passing neighbor and keeping it as its own. Imagine a rogue planet drifting through the interstellar night, getting caught in our sun's gravitational web like a fly in a spider's silk. It would be pulled in from the abyss, accelerated, and then settled into a vast, eccentric orbit far beyond the reach of the inner planets. This would perfectly explain why Planet 9 and Planet Y are so far away, and why their orbits are so strangely tilted. They didn't form here. They were brought here, late to the party and fundamentally out of alignment with the rest of the native family. This realization adds a layer of cosmic thievery to our system's origin story, but it also raises the scientific stakes to an almost incomprehensible level. If Planet 9 or Planet Y is an interstellar capture, it means we don't have to travel light years to another star to study an exoplanet. The greatest prize in modern astronomy, the chance to touch a world born from a different nebula, around a different sun, would be waiting for us just a few light days away. It would be an alien world in every sense of the word, with a chemical composition and an isotopic signature that is fundamentally different from anything else in our solar system. Think about what that means for our understanding of the universe. Every planet we have ever studied, from the sulfurous clouds of Venus to the icy plains of Pluto, shares a common chemical heritage. They all have the same ratios of oxygen, carbon, and nitrogen because they all came from the same initial cloud of gas. But a captured rogue would be a black box from another star. Its rocks would contain different elements, its ice would have different molecular structures. By studying it, we wouldn't just be learning about our own history, we would be reading the history of a star that might have died billions of years ago. It would be a piece of an alien civilization's potential home, delivered right to our doorstep. The possibility of capture doesn't just stop at planets. Some astronomers have proposed that even larger objects could be hiding in the furthest reaches of the Oort cloud, captured in the same way. There is the persistent, though dismissed, theory of Tyche, a hypothetical gas giant even larger than Jupiter, or perhaps a failed star known as a brown dwarf that might have been stolen by the Sun during its infancy. While most modern surveys have ruled out a world that large, the principle remains: our Sun is a collector. It is a massive gravitational engine that has spent billions of years vacuuming up whatever the galaxy threw its way. This transforms the outer darkness from a graveyard into a trophy room. We aren't just looking at the leftovers of our own birth, we are looking at a collection of cosmic orphans. This astronomy's blind spot has prevented us from seeing the sun for what it truly is, a silent, powerful thief that has been guarding its stolen treasures for eons. We have spent centuries perfecting our view of the inner system, believing it to be a pure, isolated family, while the outsiders have been watching from the fringes. But if the hidden planet is a capture, it also means it is a world that has experienced the true horrors of the void. It has spent millions, perhaps billions of years, as a rogue world, drifting in a place where there is no day and night, only the eternal, freezing black. Even now, in its captured orbit, it remains a world of absolute twilight. The sun we see as a blinding orb is, to that world, just a particularly bright star that offers no warmth. It is a world that was stolen from the light and kept in the dark. This rogue capture angle forces us to rethink the very definition of our solar system. If the 9th planet is an alien, do we still have 8 planets and a visitor? Or does the act of capture make it ours? This isn't just a semantic debate, it changes how we prioritize our exploration of space. If we find that the invisible sculptor warping our Kuiper Belt is an interstellar traveler, the search for life and the study of other star systems shifts from the distant stars to the edge of our own. The evidence for this thievery is written in the orbital anomalies we see today. The fact that these hidden worlds refuse to align with the flat plane of the other planets is the ultimate clue. They are the rebels of the system, the ones who don't follow the rules because they were never part of the original plan. As we wait for the Vera Rubin Observatory to catch that first faint glimmer of motion, we must prepare ourselves for the possibility that the world it finds will be truly alien. We have been staring into the abyss, searching for a lost sibling, but we may find that we have been living in the presence of a stranger all along. The comfortable lie of a closed 8-planet family is dying. In its place is a much more complex and perhaps more disturbing reality. We are part of a system that is still actively being shaped by the galaxy around us. We are not alone in the dark, and the worlds that share our sun might not share our origin. But as we prepare to face this interstellar thief, we have to ask, if the hidden object isn't a planet at all, not an exile and not a captive, what else could it be? What if the invisible hand is something much more ancient and much more dangerous than a world made of rock and ice? We have spent years hunting for a ghost. But what if the reason we haven't found it isn't because the lights are off, but because the object itself is a hole in reality? This is the point where our search for a hidden world takes a turn into the truly macabre, leading us to what astronomers call the dark twin paradox. For all our talk of ice giants and rocky Earth twins, there is a persistent, nagging problem with the Planet 9 theory, despite knowing exactly how much it weighs and where it's. Gravitational influence is strongest. Our most powerful infrared surveys have come up completely empty. If a world 5 to 10 times the mass of Earth is out there, even if it is cold, it should still emit a faint heat signature that a telescope like WISE could detect. The fact that we see nothing has led some of the most brilliant minds in astrophysics to a conclusion that feels like science fiction. The planet we are tracking might actually be a primordial black hole the size of a grapefruit. To understand how something so small could be causing such massive chaos, we have to rethink everything we know about black holes. We usually think of them as the terrifying remains of giant stars that collapsed under their own weight, vast, hungry maws in the center of galaxies that swallow everything in. Their path. But those are stellar mass black holes. The suspect in our solar system is something much more ancient and much more mysterious, a primordial black hole. These objects were not born from dying stars. They were forged in the first microseconds after the Big Bang, during the very birth of the universe. In those initial moments, the universe was a dense, boiling soup of energy and matter. In some regions, the density was so extreme that pockets of matter simply skipped the star-forming phase and collapsed directly into tiny, stable singularities. These primordial black holes have been touring the universe ever since, invisible nomads drifting through the void for 13 billion years. And it is possible that one of them, a relic from the dawn of time, wandered into our solar system and got caught in the sun's gravitational web. This is the dark twin, a shadow lurking where a world should be, possessing all the gravitational muscle of a giant planet, but none of the physical presence. The math for Planet 9 requires an object with a mass of about 5 to 10 Earths to explain the clustering of Kuiper Belt objects and the 15-degree warp. If you take that much mass and pack it into a planet, you get a world twice the size of Earth. But if you pack that same mass into a black hole, the laws of physics compress it into a sphere with an event horizon just a few centimeters across, no bigger than a wallet or a. This perfectly explains the outer darkness paradox. We can't see the object because there is literally nothing to see. A black hole doesn't have a surface to reflect the sun's faint light. It doesn't have a warm core that glows in the infrared. It is a perfect predator of light, consuming everything that touches its event horizon and letting nothing escape. We could point our most powerful telescopes directly at it for 100 years and see nothing but the cold, black stars of the background. It is the ultimate invisible sculptor, a gravitational ghost that leaves fingerprints everywhere but never shows its face. The implications of this theory are, quite frankly, revolutionary for our understanding of the entire cosmos. For decades, one of the biggest mysteries in science has been the search for dark matter, the invisible stuff that makes up the vast majority of the mass in the universe, but which we have never been able to detect. Many scientists believe that dark matter isn't a new kind of particle, but rather a vast swarm of these primordial black holes left over from the Big Bang. If we find one in our own solar system, it would be the smoking gun for the dark matter mystery. We wouldn't just be discovering a new member of the solar system, we would be uncovering a relic of the Big Bang itself, a piece of the fundamental machinery of the universe, hiding in our own backyard. It would turn our solar system into a laboratory for the most extreme physics imaginable. But how do you catch a hole in the dark? If we can't see it with light, we have to look for the shimmer. As this tiny black hole moves through the outer solar system, its gravity is so intense that it actually warps the space around it. This is called gravitational lensing. If the black hole passes in front of a distant star, the star's light will momentarily brighten or distort as it is bent by the singularity's mass. It is a blink and you miss it event, but with the Vera Rubin Observatory's 10-year time-lapse, we might finally catch that flicker. Another theory suggests we should look for the screams of its victims. Even in the near vacuum of the outer solar system, there are stray atoms of hydrogen and tiny grains of dust. As these particles are pulled toward the black hole, they accelerate to incredible speeds, heating up and emitting a tiny, telltale burst of X-rays or gamma rays just before they cross the event horizon. It wouldn't be much, a faint, flickering signal at the very edge of our detection limits, but it would be the heartbeat of a singularity. The dark twin paradox forces us to confront a psychological horror that the original documentaries completely ignored. We have been searching for a Planet 9 because we want to find something like us, a world of rock, ice, and perhaps even the potential for some strange, frozen chemistry. We want to complete the family portrait. But the black hole hypothesis suggests that our family isn't just missing a sibling. It's being stalked by an ancient, primordial force that predates the Sun itself. It suggests that the order we see in the clustering of the Kuiper Belt isn't the work of a world, but the result of a microscopic rip in the fabric of space-time that has been. Quietly herding the debris of our system for eons, this is the ultimate blind spot. We have spent centuries looking for light, but the most important object in our neighborhood might be the embodiment of darkness. If the Vera Rubin Observatory spends a decade scanning the sky and finds the river of matter and the orbital clustering, but never sees a single pixel of a planet, the dark twin becomes the only explanation left standing. We would be forced to accept that we aren't just an 8-planet system, but a binary system, a sun paired with a dark, silent partner that fits in the palm of your hand but weighs as much as 10 Earths. As we move further into the outer darkness, the mystery only deepens. Whether it is a frozen exile, a captured stranger, or a primordial black hole, the evidence is undeniable. Something is out there. We are no longer asking if there is a hidden influence, but what it is. And as we prepare to face the river of matter, the literal current of icy rocks being thrown toward us by this invisible giant, we realize that the search for Planet 9 is no longer a hobby for mathematicians. It is a countdown to a discovery that will rewrite the history of the universe. If we have spent the last few chapters looking at the stationary fingerprints of a hidden giant, the tilted orbits, and the strangely clustered ice, we are now about to witness the most disturbing evidence of all. We are moving from the realm of static clues into an active, ongoing crime scene. For years, the debate over a hidden world has been framed as a historical mystery, a search for a ghost that might have been hiding for billions of years. But the newest line of evidence, something that has never been discussed in mainstream documentaries, reveals that this invisible giant is not just sitting there. It is working. It is active. And right now, as you read these words, it is playing a violent, high-stakes game of catch with the rest of our solar system. This is the mystery of the river of matter, a literal current of outer solar system material currently being jammed into the space between Jupiter and Neptune. To understand the magnitude of this discovery, we have to look at the gold standard of scientific proof. In the world of physics, when you want to announce that you have found something as world-changing as the Higgs boson, you don't just say you're pretty sure. You wait for a 5 sigma result. 5 sigma is the statistical equivalent of a mountain of evidence. It means there is only a 1 in 3.5 million chance that what you are seeing is a random fluke or a statistical error. For decades, the search for a 9th planet was stuck in the realm of maybe. But when researchers ran the simulations of this river of matter and compared them to the real objects we have found, the results didn't just suggest Planet 9 exists. They entirely ruled out the possibility that it doesn't. The concept is as elegant as it is terrifying. Imagine the region of space between Jupiter and Neptune. In a normal, empty solar system, this area should be relatively quiet. Neptune acts as the security guard of the outer reaches. Its massive gravity is designed to sweep this region clean. Any icy rock that happens to drift inward from the Kuiper Belt would be caught by Neptune and quickly thrown back out into the void or swallowed by the Sun. Over billions of years, Neptune should have finished its job. This region should be empty. But when astronomers looked closer, they found something that shouldn't be there: a constant flux of bodies, a river of ice and rock continuously arriving in the inner system. This is where the game of catch begins. In the most advanced computer simulations ever created of our solar system, scientists ran two different scenarios. In the first, they created our 8-planet system exactly as we know it and let it run for billions of years. In this version, the space between the gas giants became a desert. There was no river. But in the second scenario, they added Planet 9, a massive hidden world 5 to 10 times the weight of Earth, lurking in the extreme fringes. Suddenly, the simulation came to life. Planet 9's immense gravity reached into the Oort cloud, the most distant shell of icy debris surrounding our Sun, and began to act like a gravitational pump. It would grab these ancient rocks and shove them inward, accelerating them toward the Sun. These objects would then cross the path of Neptune, where the gas giant would catch them and pull them into new temporary orbits. The simulation predicted that if Planet 9 were out there, it would create a specific, measurable river where roughly 3% of the objects out past Neptune should be on a path that crosses Neptune's orbit. Without Planet 9, that number drops to almost zero, just 0.5%. When astronomers went back to the real-world data and looked at the 29 specific objects we have found in this region, the numbers matched the Planet 9 simulation with chilling precision. The river is real. We are watching a cosmic assembly line where a hidden world is continuously feeding the inner solar system with material from the edge of the abyss. This isn't a theory based on a few wobbly orbits. It is an observation of an active gravitational engine that is running right now. This 5 sigma evidence changes the entire psychological landscape of the search. We can no longer dismiss the clustering of the Kuiper Belt as observational bias, the idea that we are only seeing patterns because we are looking in specific spots. You cannot have a biased river of matter that is actively crossing the orbits of the giants we have mapped for centuries. The math is essentially screaming at us that the only way to explain the presence of these 29 objects is to acknowledge the presence of the invisible sculptor who sent them there. But if the evidence is so gold standard, why are we still calling it a hypothesis? Why haven't we seen the giant behind the pump? This is where the outer darkness becomes a physical barrier. While we can see the river, the objects within it are faint, small, and incredibly difficult to track. Out of the 29 objects that make up our 5 sigma proof, only about half of them have orbits that are well defined enough for us to trust completely. We are squinting through a keyhole at a massive operation, trying to map the movements of a ghost by watching the dust it kicks up. This creates a high-tension countdown. We have the forensic certainty that something is there, but we are missing the visual confirmation. We are in the same position Leverrier was in 1846, when he told the world there was a planet beyond Uranus based on nothing but math. He knew it was there, he just couldn't see it yet. Today, the stakes are even higher. We are tracking an object that might not just be a planet, but a primordial relic or a captured alien. And as this river of matter continues to flow, it is providing us with a breadcrumb trail that leads directly into the black. Think about the implications of a world that acts as a pump. It means Planet 9 is not just a passive member of the solar system, it is an active participant in our history. By throwing material inward, it may have been responsible for the late heavy bombardment that cratered our moon and delivered water to the early Earth. It means the very existence of life on our planet might be tied to the movements of a world we haven't even named yet. We are the beneficiaries of a system that is far more complex and far more interconnected than we ever dared to imagine. The discovery of the river also shatters the idea that the solar system is a finished project. We are living in a dynamic, shifting machine. We are witnessing the replenishment of the Kuiper Belt and the shifting of the Oort cloud in real time. This is why the Vera Rubin Observatory is the most important tool in human history for this specific search. Its 3,200 megapixel camera isn't just going to take a picture, it is going to record the flow. It will find hundreds, perhaps thousands more of these river objects, turning our 5 sigma certainty into a mathematical landslide. As we move deeper into this investigation, we have to prepare ourselves for the reality of what this pump looks like. We have seen the math, we have felt the gravity, and we have tracked the flow of the ice. But soon, we will have to leave the comfort of our telescopes and enter the outer darkness ourselves. We need to understand what it's like in the realm where this river begins, a place where the sun is just a memory and the rules of physics are the only thing keeping the lights on. We are no longer just chasing shadows at the edge of the solar system, we are following the current. And as the river of matter pulls us further and further away from the sun, we are about to enter a region of such psychological horror and absolute cold that the very concept of home begins to dissolve. To truly grasp the mystery of the invisible giant, we have to leave the warmth of our telescopes behind and descend, metaphorically, into the realm where the light finally fails. We are entering the outer darkness, a place that challenges our very definition of what a planet is supposed to be. If we were to travel beyond the orbit of Neptune, past the security guard that keeps the inner system safe, the familiar landscape of our cosmic home begins to dissolve into a haunting psychological void. This isn't just a distance on a map, it is a shift in the fundamental laws of existence. As we pass the 50 astronomical unit mark, we are entering a graveyard of trillions of icy rocks, but as we push further to 150, 500, or even 800 units away, we encounter a reality of such absolute isolation that it borders on cosmic horror. Imagine yourself standing on the surface of planet Y. The hidden terrestrial world we suspect is lurking just 150 astronomical units away. At this distance, you are already further from the Sun than the Voyager 1 probe is from Earth. On this world, the concept of daytime has been erased. The Sun, the life-giving engine of our civilization, has shrunk until it is nothing more than a piercingly bright, cold star in a perpetually black sky. It provides no warmth, it casts no shadows that you would recognize. If you were to look up at high noon, the sky would not be blue, it would be the same inky, crushing black as the deepest midnight on Earth, scattered with distant, uncaring stars. The silence here would be absolute. Because Planet Y is so cold, it possesses no atmosphere as we know it, no wind to howl through valleys, no air to carry the sound of a footstep. The temperature on the surface is a nightmare of physics, hovering just tens of degrees above absolute zero. This is a cold so profound that it changes the behavior of matter itself. On Earth, we know nitrogen as the invisible gas we breathe. Here, it is a solid, brittle rock that forms massive, jagged glaciers. Methane, the fuel we burn for heat, is a frozen crust beneath your feet, hard as granite and twice as cold. You are standing on a world that is dead and frozen beyond anything humanity has ever experienced. A relic that has been cooling in the dark for 4.5 billion years. This is the psychological weight of astronomy's blind spot. We are discovering that our solar system has a basement that we never bothered to check, and it is filled with these frozen ghosts. If you were to continue your journey further out, to the theorized 500 astronomical unit orbit of Planet 9, the isolation scales into the incomprehensible. At this distance, the Sun is so far away that its light takes nearly 3 full days to reach you. You are so far removed from the inner system that the giant planets, Jupiter, Saturn, even Neptune, are invisible to the naked eye, lost in the glare of a distant sun that longer feels like yours. Standing on the surface of Planet 9, you would be standing on the rejected core of a giant that never was. It is a world of immense gravity but zero life, a dense ball of rock and metal encased in a shell of exotic ices. Because it takes up to 15,000 years to complete a single orbit, the seasons on this world last for millennia. A single year on Planet 9 has seen the entirety of human civilization rise and fall, yet on its surface not a single pebble has moved. It is a world of perfect stasis, a place where time seems to have frozen along with the gases on its surface. This is the crushing twilight that defines the outer solar system. It is a realm where the sun is just a memory, and the only thing that matters is gravity. We often think of space as empty, but as we descend into the outer darkness, we realize it is actually crowded with these invisible actors. The horror of these worlds isn't just their cold or their darkness, it is their anonymity. They have been part of our system since the beginning, herding the Kuiper Belt, warping the orbits of distant ice, and playing a silent game of catch with the rocks that occasionally streak past our own planet. They have been the invisible architects of our neighborhood, yet we are only now realizing they exist. There is a disturbing realization that comes with this descent. If Planet Y is an exiled sibling, then we are looking at a version of Earth that was robbed of its destiny. It is a terrestrial world that could have been like ours, but was instead slung into the void by the migration of Jupiter, left to freeze into a silent tomb. If Planet 9 is an interstellar capture, then the darkness is even more alien. It is a world that spent eons drifting in the true void between stars, in the absolute zero of interstellar space, before being snagged by our sun's gravitational trap. In either case, these worlds are the ultimate outsiders. The outer darkness serves as a mirror for our own insignificance. We have built our cities and fought our wars under the warmth of a sun that we thought we understood, in a system we thought we had mapped to its very edge. But beyond the reach of our light, the invisible sculptor continues its work. It moves with agonizing slowness, a giant in the shadows that doesn't care that we've finally noticed it. It reminds us that our completed map was nothing more than a sketch of the foyer, and the rest of the house is cold, dark, and filled with secrets we are only just beginning to name. As we prepare to surface from this psychological descent, we carry back the knowledge that the solar system is not a finished project. It is a violent, dynamic machine that is still keeping secrets in the dark. The river of matter we tracked in the previous chapters is the only thing that connects our warm, sun-drenched world to this frozen abyss. It is the umbilical cord of gravity that proves we are not alone in the system. But the most terrifying question remains: if we find these worlds, if we finally point the Vera Rubin Observatory at the exact pixel where the darkness moves, what will we see? Will we see a world of ice? Or will we find that the dark twin at the center of the mystery is something far more ancient, a rip in the fabric of space that has been watching us from the beginning? We are no longer just looking for a ninth planet. We are looking for the truth about the outer darkness and our place within it. We are standing on the shore of a vast black ocean, and for the first time we have the tools to see what is swimming in the deep. The countdown to discovery is no longer about math. It is about the moment we finally face the ghost that has been haunting our orbits since the dawn of time. For years, our search for the hidden giants of the outer solar system has been a pursuit of shadows, a mathematical fever dream, where we chased ghosts through the static of incomplete data. We have pushed our current technology to its absolute breaking point, using the world's most powerful telescopes to squint into the abyss, only to return with more questions than answers. But the era of speculation is rapidly coming to a close. High in the Chilean Andes, in a place where the air is thin and the stars feel close enough to touch, humanity has finished building its most formidable sentinel. This is the Vera Rubin Observatory, and it represents our moment of truth, the final, definitive hunt for the worlds we have spent centuries missing. To understand why this machine is a game-changer, we have to look at the failures of the past. The search for Planet 9 and its elusive sibling, Planet Y, has not been for a lack of trying. Astronomers have already thrown the best tools we had at the problem. The Subaru telescope in Japan performed some of the deepest wide-field imaging ever attempted in 2020. It found more icy rocks that confirmed the crime scene. But the killer remained in the shadows. The Pan-STARRS telescope in Hawaii scanned the skies back in the 2010s, but its eyes weren't sensitive enough to pierce the deep twilight of the outer darkness. Even the Dark Energy Survey, which mapped a staggering 12% of the entire sky over 6 years, came up empty-handed. Up until this moment, the telescopes we possessed were simply not designed for a hunt of this magnitude. They were like trying to find a black cat in a dark basement using a laser pointer. We were seeing flashes of movement, but we could never see the cat. The Vera Rubin Observatory is different. It doesn't just look at space, it records it. It features a massive 8.4-meter mirror and literally the largest digital camera ever constructed for the study of the heavens, a staggering 3,200 megapixel beast that is the size of a car. This isn't just a telescope. It is the world's most sensitive security camera, an eye of the Andes designed to catch even the faintest shimmer of motion in the deepest void. It is so sensitive that scientists claim it could spot a single candle lit on the surface of the moon. But its true power isn't just in its sensitivity, it's in its speed. Previous telescopes took months or even years to map significant portions of the sky. The Vera Rubin Observatory can image the entire visible southern sky to unmatched depths every 3 nights. Starting in early 2026, it will begin its primary mission, the Legacy Survey of Space and Time. For 10 years, it will take a continuous, high-resolution, time-lapse video of everything in space. This is the gold standard of observation. We will no longer need to guess where a hidden planet might be along its 15,000-year orbit. The machine will simply watch the entire sky move, frame by frame, night by night, until the ghost reveals itself. As the calendar turns toward 2026, the scientific community is entering a state of controlled tension. The countdown has begun. Within the first year or two of full operations, the Vera Rubin will have gathered enough data to provide what researchers call statistical certainty. It will find hundreds, perhaps thousands, of new objects in the river of matter, refining our mathematical models until there is nowhere left for a hidden world to hide. If Planet 9 is out there, 6 times the mass of Earth and tucked away in its tilted, eccentric orbit, the Vera Rubin will find it. If planet Y is lurking much closer, warping the Kuiper Belt with its terrestrial weight, the one single pixel that moves will finally be captured. But there is a darker side to this countdown, a psychological threshold that we are about to cross. What happens if the machine looks and finds nothing? If the Vera Rubin Observatory scans the sky for years and confirms the river of matter and the 15-degree warp, but fails to find a single solid world, we will be forced to confront the dark twin paradox. We would have to accept that the invisible sculptor is not a planet at all, but something far more exotic and unsettling, perhaps a primordial black hole the size of a grapefruit. Or a fundamental misunderstanding of how gravity works at the edge of the sun's reach. This is the ultimate blind spot. We have built the most advanced eye in human history to prove we aren't alone in our own system, but we must also prepare for the possibility that the outer darkness contains something that defies our current laws of reality. The Vera Rubin will either complete our family portrait, or it will tell us that we are being watched by something ancient and primordial that doesn't reflect light. Either way, the comfortable lie of our 8-planet system is about to be shattered forever. For the lead researchers like Konstantin Batygin and Mike Brown, this is the culmination of a decade of obsession. They have staked their reputations on the math, placing the likelihood of a 9th planet's existence at over 90%. They have seen the fingerprints, they have heard the gravitational shouting of a hidden world. Now, they are waiting for the Eye of the Andes to deliver the final verdict. The 10-year time-lapse has already begun, and with every passing night, the data is rolling in, being processed by supercomputers that are hunting for that one specific crawl across the stars. The suspense of this final hunt is unlike anything in the history of astronomy. Unlike the discovery of Neptune, which took just a few hours once the math was solved, finding Planet 9 is a needle in a haystack problem where the haystack is the entire southern sky and the needle is incredibly dim. But we are no longer looking with a magnifying glass. We are using a floodlight. The countdown to 2026 is not just about a date on a calendar. It is about the moment humanity finally turns on the lights in the basement. We are standing on the precipice of a new era of discovery. Within the next 24 to 48 months, we will know if we have spent our entire history missing a massive sibling in the dark. We will know if our sun is an interstellar thief guarding a captured alien world, or if we have an exiled Earth twin waiting to be welcomed home. The Vera Rubin Observatory is our bridge to that truth. It is the machine that will bridge the gap between astronomy's blind spot and a complete map of our cosmic home. The stakes could not be higher. Finding a hidden world would redefine the boundaries of our system and rewrite every textbook on planetary formation. It would give us our first exoplanet within reach of our own probes and prove that even after centuries of looking up, the universe still has the power to surprise us. But as we wait for that first pixel to move, we have to ask ourselves, are we ready to face what is lurking in the outer darkness? Are we ready to realize that for 4.5 billion years, we have been part of a much larger, much stranger family than we ever dared to imagine? When that single, stubborn pixel finally moves across the screens of the Vera Rubin Observatory, it will trigger the most significant identity crisis in the history of human science. We won't just be adding a new dot to a map. we will be forced to hold a naming ceremony for a world that has watched us from the shadows for 4 billion years. Since all the planets in our current family are named after Greek or Roman mythological figures, the International Astronomical Union will face a choice that carries the weight of our entire history. The candidates already being whispered in the halls of Caltech and Princeton are steeped in the very darkness we are trying to illuminate. Many favor Persephone, the queen of the underworld who was abducted into the darkness, a fitting title for a world that may have been violently exiled from the light of the inner system. Others suggest Minerva, the goddess of wisdom and strategic war, perhaps acknowledging the decade-long mathematical battle fought to prove its existence. There is Oceanus, representing the vast primordial river that the ancients believed encircled the world, a mirror to the river of matter we now know flows at the edge of our system. And then there is the suggestion from Konstantin Batygin himself, a nod to the starman who left us just as this search was intensifying Bowie. But regardless of whether we name it after a god or a rock star, the discovery will do something much more profound than fill a vacancy in our textbooks. It will represent the final crushing blow to our cosmic ego. For centuries, we have looked at our 8-planet family and felt a sense of completion, a belief that we had mastered our immediate surroundings. We viewed the solar system as a solved puzzle, a static, predictable clockwork mechanism. Finding Planet 9 or Planet Y would be the ultimate proof that we have been living in a house with a locked door we never even noticed. It proves that technological progress and cosmic ignorance can coexist, that we can photograph the pillars of creation light years away while remaining blind to a giant in our own backyard. This discovery will rewrite the family portrait of our solar system forever. We will have to move from the 8-planet lie to a reality that is far more complex and perhaps even chaotic. If we find that the hidden world is a lost sibling like Planet Y, it confirms that our own home is the survivor of a prehistoric purge, a place where brothers were cast out so that we could thrive. If we find a captured stranger, it means the solar system is an open border, a collector of alien worlds stolen from the stars. And if we find the dark twin, that primordial black hole the size of a grapefruit, then we are forced to accept that our neighborhood is shared with a relic from the Big Bang itself. The discovery will also ignite a new era of exploration. Finding these worlds isn't the end of the journey, it's the beginning of the most ambitious mission humanity has ever conceived. We will no longer be satisfied with telescopes. We will want to touch the outer darkness. We will start designing probes that can survive the 15,000-year crawl of these distant orbits, missions that will take decades just to arrive at a world where the sun is just a bright star. We will want to see the frozen nitrogen glaciers of Planet Y and the crushed metallic core of Planet 9. These worlds will become our first stepping stones into the true interstellar void. But as we prepare for this moment of truth, we must realize that finding a hidden world doesn't actually complete our map. Instead, it proves that the map is a living document that we may never truly finish. It humbles us. It reminds us that our scientific revolution is just a brief flickering of a candle in a very large, very dark room. We have been fooled into thinking we know everything, but the fingerprints in the Kuiper Belt and the river of icy rocks prove that nature is always moving, always sculpting, and always keeping secrets. The hunt for the 9th planet has been a decade-long obsession for some and a century-long mystery for others. It is a scientific drama filled with reputational risk and mathematical courage. But more than that, it is a testament to the human spirit, the refusal to accept the darkness as empty. We have looked into the abyss, and instead of turning away in fear, we built a 3,200 megapixel eye to stare back. We have taken the wobbles and perturbations of a lonely solar system and turned them into a search for our lost heritage. As the Vera Rubin Observatory continues its 10-year time-lapse, the countdown is no longer about if, but when. We are standing on the shore of a vast black ocean, waiting for the tide to bring in a world we thought we had lost. And when that pixel finally moves, we won't just see a planet. We will see the evidence of our own persistence. We will realize that we were wrong about our solar system, but we were right to keep looking. The comfortable lie is over. The family portrait is being repainted. And as we finally step out of astronomy's blind spot, we will find that the solar system we call home is far bigger, far older, and far more mysterious than we ever dared to. Imagine, we are no longer the masters of a small, finished map. We are the explorers of an infinite, unfolding story. And the most exciting chapters are the ones still hidden in the dark. The search for the ghost of the ninth orbit is almost over, but the story of the outer darkness is only just beginning. Tonight, we have looked into the void and found that it is not empty, it is waiting. And soon, very soon, the light of the Andes will finally hit the surface of a world that has been waiting 4 billion years to be found.